There's over 60 teachers here at Monomoy Regional High School. For some, this is their first job, and for others, they had other careers in the past. Mr. Negron is an 8th grade math teacher as well as a personal finance teacher here at Monomoy. But before he started working here, he worked on Wall Street in New York City. We're going to be asking him some questions today. Let's go see what he has to say. Welcome back to today's episode of Interviews with Monomoy Sports and School Teachers. Today's guest is Mr. Negron, and first we'll get started with the first question. Before coming to teach at Monomoy, what were you doing and where were you for a job?
I've been teaching for the last, I think this is my 9th year teaching. So I was at Barnstable prior to this. Before teaching though, I worked on Wall Street for a number of firms for 23 years.
What was it like working on Wall Street? Is it chaotic like many people portray it to be?
So I think it's like every other job. So some days would be chaotic, some days would actually be boring and we'd sit around on the trading desk trying to figure out how to pass time. Days that were hectic though, chaotic, were incredibly chaotic. For instance, when I was at Morgan Stanley, in the early 90s, interest rates were raised the day before the 4th of July, so my trip to Newport for the weekend was put on hold by about 4 hours while we sat and made sure that all the trades that we made that day balanced out.
Could you tell me a little bit about the subjects you teach here at Monomoy?
So here at Monomoy, I teach math. I teach 8th grade math, so that's pre-algebra and algebra. And I also teach the personal finance class, which is primarily juniors and seniors. And my background for it is when I worked on Wall Street, I basically sat at a trading desk and did algebraic equations in my head or in an Excel spreadsheet. So I thought that my understanding of algebra was pretty strong. So when I started thinking about becoming a teacher, that was the natural direction that I went.
What made you want to become a teacher?
That's actually a great question. So when I was in college, my junior and senior year of college, I also, as in the summertime, I worked as a lifeguard, and everyone was amazed because everybody wanted to be in my swimming lessons because all the kids really liked me so much. And so, my father was a colonel in the Marine Corps, and when he retired, he became a high school teacher as well. So it was always in the back of my mind as something that I wanted to do. So after 2008, when basically there was structural change on Wall Street and the job that I had was minimized, I stuck around for a couple of years, but as the conditions just got worse, I decided that I'd give teaching a chance. My wife had been teaching and really encouraged me to do so. So really it was something that I always wanted to do, and really was just forced into it. So really happy the decision that I make. I know that it doesn't always seem like it, but I really do enjoy being around students and teaching. So yeah, that's when I decided to become a teacher.
Last question. Are there any takeaways from New York City and Cleveland that you use to further enhance the personal finance classes?
Yeah, I mean, living in New York City, so I've lived in New York City, Boston, and Cleveland. So the takeaways really are, that people are slightly different, yet you can find happiness anywhere. As a young person, I loved living in New York City. It was exciting, it was a lot of fun. Then my wife and I, when we got engaged, we moved up to Boston for a couple of years and lived in Charlestown. And then we moved out to Cleveland, and I remember when we moved out to Cleveland, I told my wife, I promise it'll just be for a couple of years. But when we moved out to Cleveland, we actually loved it. We lived in a very nice neighborhood and in a beautiful house that was affordable. So, yeah, I can take away that the difference in quality of life and, the understanding of how much you really need to make in those 3 different places to really enjoy quality of life. So I think that probably is one of the biggest takeaways that I use in personal finance class.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Mr. Negron, and thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully, everything you learned from today's video and may inspire you to take some of these classes in the future. Next episode, we're interviewing the winter sports teams as they make their playoff run, and so be excited for that, and see you guys next time.